BID, well, that's already an acronym. So BID is Business Improvement District. And the way I explain it to my friends is if the Chamber of Commerce and a local gossip had a baby, that would be a business improvement district. So, all the buildings on Fifth Avenue contribute voluntarily a little extra tax assessment.
Oh, wow.
So, a typical building on Fifth Avenue will pay $300 or $400 in a year. And collectively, that becomes the budget for us to put up holiday lights and pick up trash and cover graffiti and welcome new businesses and, help people if they get a violation or they don't understand regulations. So it's a nonprofit service organization.
Cool.
I mean, anything with small business in the name during a pandemic, this is next to the medical emergency and the loss of life,
right,
which is the greatest impact of all.
Yeah.
Watching these small businesses struggle to survive has been alternately, horrifying, infuriating, inspiring. Especially very, very small businesses that aren't corporate run. These are passionate people, right? They operate by, their grit and their heart, just like a theater company.
Yeah.
And I think the pandemic has exposed just how bad it was for little businesses. Before, when times were good, they were struggling. Then times go crazy, and there's just no telling who will survive, who will adapt, and what we'll see come next. It's
right.
Really sort of bigger than I can take in all at once.
Yeah.
So I try to focus on just little good things to do. Just little good things to do.
I feel like that's really a beautiful sort of rubric for the attitude I aspire to. Little good things to do. You do what you can. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I mean, the level of uncertainty is so hard. And as you say, I mean, David, the experience that I have is exactly like what you're describing. It's always such a struggle, and it's a labor of passion and love. And then now we need to adapt. Now we can't do so many things that we thought we could do. And so what are the little good things that you can find that will express what our company is for and be meaningful in this context, in this moment?
So that's and they are often unexpected.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not if you had told me before the pandemic, hey, there's going to be a pandemic, everything's going to change. Put together your good little list of good little things to do. It would look nothing like what I've actually encountered. Right. So there's this very uncomfortable place, I think, for a lot of New Yorkers to be wholly uncertain and not as busy in the things that have occupied my mind over a long time, and really have to look for what's next. That's a tough moment of adaptation, at least for me, I think, in some of the businesses.
Yeah. For us too. And it calls for, I feel it, one thing it calls for, which is always important, but never more so, listening. Pay attention to what's going on and try to be open because of what you say. You don't know, you couldn't have planned this. You can't decide what the right thing to do is. You have to pay attention to what's going on around you, and then try to be alive to the opportunities and the needs that are present that you can step into in some way that will be supportive.
Yeah. And there are opportunities. I mean, it's a change. It's a time of change. It's not change that we desire, but there are opportunities inside of it. I have 4 or 5 businesses that opened.
Really?
During the shutdown.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, like, Rey de Pescado on 46,
yes,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They weren't open when the pandemic started because they had trouble getting their last inspections from the city.
Of course.
Classic small business thing. And a few others have opened in the midst of all this. So it's not all loss.
No.
And I mean, I was saying earlier, I'm from California. I'm used to wildfires sweeping through. I'm used to, big moments of change, and then all of a sudden, things blossom again. I'm hopeful, but I think we have several years of this adaptation and reimagining things. Yeah. It's not going to be like a serum or a vaccine comes out and it's all better again.
No, exactly.
It's different forever.
Yeah. I agree.
That's interesting. But who would have thought we would have dining on the streets?
Right. Or theater on the
Or
streets.
theater on the street. It's like, unheard of. Who would have thought that I could close Fifth Avenue for a few blocks every weekend
Yeah.
to just have no cars and people,
Right.
enjoying a cup of coffee or a taco or a drink.
And these beautiful new things can happen. No. So we weren't suddenly the restaurants or other businesses can push their presence out onto the streets, and we're doing the same thing. It's like, hey, okay, we'll work to people on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Because that'll be safe and actually it will be artistically exciting. It's not a compromise.
It's honest to the moment. If
Yeah.
you wanted your service to a client in a restaurant or your theater production,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To meet the person where they are
living
and with what they want, whether it's a beautiful plate of food or a beautiful set of words ringing in my ears or an action, that's honest.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and therefore powerful. Yeah, that's right. I feel that very strongly. Like, I don't feel that the work that we're doing, and I don't think for other businesses, I imagine it's the same, although you tell me, I don't feel the work we're doing is a compromised version of what we do. We're doing what we do. We're adapting it, but that's better in this moment, exactly for the reason you said.
There's probably a nuance for small businesses because a lot of what sustained them through all the difficulties was the sheer volume of business, right? So, street retail businesses, rely on that intense amount of foot traffic and people and passage, and so their model might not be easily adaptable.
For sure.
And I imagine in the arts or in a theater, the integrity of the work itself and its relationship to an audience is where the truth, that sense of truth and quality lies.
Exactly.
For small business, a lot of times it's just how much money's in the register at the end of the day. That doesn't preclude creativity in business and business in the arts, right? But there is a different feeling.
You're right.
And so I have some folks who are a little hopeless right now, and I have some folks who've switched up and are just on their new game.
Yeah. No, that's right. The bottom line is not my goal. It's important, but it's not my goal.
Right.
And that's different.
Yeah.
That's our choice.
But the overlap is significant, I think. In the passion, the overlap is significant.
Oh, yeah.
In the passion to just do it. These are family affairs on Fifth Avenue. A lot of times, the gentleman who's the proprietor is standing behind the register. His wife is on the counter. His kid fills in once in a while.
Totally.
These aren't corporate enterprises.
Yeah.
So we have families on Fifth Avenue that have been impacted with loss of life, for the proprietors of businesses. We have folks where staff was afraid. Boy, if we've all learned anything, the store clerk is essential to my life. And we collectively have not appreciated them, and rewarded them, whether it's the pre-K teacher or the store clerk or, the guy who was driving that street sweeper. That's a lesson.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
thank you, pandemic.
I don't know. I mean, of course I agree with that. Look, theater and the essence of it that I certainly celebrate is the live presence of people together. And finding ways to make that possible in this context is a challenge, but I also believe it's something we can do. And because it's such a challenge, maybe it's especially meaningful at this moment. That's my hope and my conviction.
Yeah, very, very small interactions can really be that little tiny bit of sustenance to keep you going. That seems, I see it in my children, right? So I have a 4 and a 5. Who would have thought a 4-year-old would be starved for conversation?
Yeah.
But she's walking down the street saying, "Hey, I like your dress. What's your name? What's the, because they're just, they're little New Yorkers, and I wonder when we'll have a moment to mourn a bit of loss. While we're in there duking it out and adapting and surviving, we're used to seeing and being close to and breathing the same air and smelling more people in one day than many people in other parts of the country experience in
For sure.
a week or a month, right? And that's part of the New York identity. And we're having to adjust not just how we perceive the outside world, but I think how we identify ourselves. So I'm still not sorted out on that.
Yes.
I have to say, guilty pleasure side of it, I don't mind having a little more room. I don't mind people respecting my space. I don't mind the skies being quieter.
Oh God!
And the
it's
birds
great.
being louder.
It's great.
And there are, boy,
Yeah.
I'm not getting Hampton's helicopters buzzing my house, over and over and over again on Sunday afternoon. That's okay. So I feel bad about that. That's that
Yeah.
emotional sort of boomerang.
But of course. I mean, look, in this moment, we have to embrace the reality and stop, slow down, reflect. It's quiet. That's not a bad thing. And the idea that is in competition with our need to connect is a false dichotomy, right?
Exactly.
I just reject that. It's like, no, we can have the reflection in the space and take the good that this moment is forcing upon us, and also still create the ways that we connect that are important and meaningful. And as you say, they can be small. It doesn't have to be big. There are all these assumptions we make about how we have to do things. We don't have to do things that way. We can set aside those assumptions. And look, there are no planes in the sky.